Hi all, welcome to our LinkedIn Live today. Today I am joined by Jessica Madhavan, who is an engineering manager at Checkatrade, and also James Payne, the head of engineering at Checkatrade. So first and foremost, both of you, thank you for joining us. And yeah, do you want to give us a quick introduction about yourselves, please? So Jess, if we start with you.
So I'm Jess. I'm an engineering manager at Checkatrade. Been at Checkatrade now for about 5 months or so. Currently manage quite a few teams at Checkatrade, and previous to being an engineering manager, I've also been in software engineering for a number of years.
Cool, awesome. And James?
I'm James. I'm head of engineering at Checkatrade. I've been around software engineering for the majority of my life, so over 15 years. I joined Checkatrade about 4 months ago. Previously from Checkatrade, I've worked in a number of startups and one other large ad tech company as well, in various positions from software engineer, from help desk, from like a IT help desk, to software engineer, to CTO, and now head of engineering at Checkatrade. And yeah, it's a delight to be here.
Awesome. Perfect. So yeah, obviously the point of this LinkedIn Live is all about understanding allyship and empowering diversity and inclusion within tech, which speaking to a lot of individuals is definitely a key thing that lots of companies and people are trying to change. So throughout this, obviously feel free to put in the comments any questions that you have. We'll try and answer as many as possible at the end and also throughout. But the structure of this will be a little bit more into Jess's story, challenges associated with improving ED&I within tech, how to become an ally, and the challenges faced in being an ally as well. So Jess, I suppose if we kick it off more about your story and sort of some of the challenges you faced throughout your career, if that's cool.
Yeah, sure. So how I got into software engineering. So I started off in sixth form. I really started to enjoy IT, and started to touch coding there. I had quite a small IT class at the time. There were maybe 5 other students, which I was the only female in that class. So again, I think that's the point I realized, okay, well, this isn't really a subject that a lot of females are taking. But I was like, okay, that's fine. There's, it's not a huge class. There's 5 of us. Continued with IT throughout sixth form, dabbled in coding, actually really, really liked it. So when it came to deciding what I wanted to do at university, ultimately started to look at computer science and those kind of courses, and seeing where I could still be somewhere where I was progressing with coding, and that's when I decided, okay, well, great, this course seems to touch all the right places that I want to progress in. So then that's when I went into computer science with software engineering, and I did that for 4 years with a placement year as well. When I went into uni, I was faced with quite an uneven balance in terms of gender in the class, which was quite interesting to me starting out at uni. I would say the first week, sort of going into a big lecture hall with 150 students or so, and seeing that there was only maybe 5 other females or so, it was pretty scary at the time. I would say one of the only things that kept me going was having some of those female role models, so like the lecturers and some of the practical teachers who were females, and thinking, oh great, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And then one other close female friend on the course, and I think it was really important to have that friendship, that companionship on the course, to not feel outnumbered and still have someone that I could closely speak to. So yeah, went through and continued computer science with software engineering for the whole 4 years. and that's quite a hard thing to do because it is a course with quite a high dropout rate, especially after the first year. You find a lot of people just think, okay, it's not for me, don't enjoy it, and then drop out. But anyway, continued with my degree, got through it, and then secured my first graduate role. So did a graduate role, and for that graduate role, I think it was interesting because in the graduate roles, you get a chance to work in different teams, working with different people, and it's a chance for you to figure out what you like doing as a software engineer. Obviously, there are so many different stacks in software engineering, so many different technologies. So to have the opportunity to be part of a scheme where I could figure out, okay, well, do I like doing front end? Do I like doing back end? What kind of technologies do I like using? That was hugely useful. So yeah, after I did a graduate course, I think it lasted about a year or so. I then moved on to deciding I preferred front-end development, and then just continued down the front-end development path for a number of years. Worked in multiple different teams during doing front-end development, and I think that's, again, just helped me get exposure to different types of frameworks and different types of technologies used. And then I would say got into about my 4th year of software engineering. And then I realized that I started to lead the team a bit more, and I started to enjoy making decisions, and almost the people in my team would look to me to make some of these changes and make some of these decisions, and lead them in a direction and run some of these ceremonies. And then that's when I started to think about, okay, well, do I prefer the management, the leadership side of things? So yeah, that's when I started looking into my options of engineering management, and then got my first engineering manager role at a small startup. It was a fintech company. I managed 2 teams there, which was still quite a fair amount of people for my first ever engineering management role. But obviously it was on a smaller scale because it was a smaller company, and those 2 teams were basically the only engineering teams in the whole company anyway. So we worked very closely together. And then after I had my time in that startup for about 7 months or so, I was like, you know what, I want to go back to a bigger company. I want to work with more teams. I want to work with more EMs, and I want to have that support network around me so I can bounce ideas off people, etc. So yeah, that's when I kind of came across Checkatrade. And I think the thing that attracted me most to Checkatrade was the fact they were also hiring in a lot of EMs and heads of engineering at the same time. So I was like, well, this is a great place for me to start, with people also starting on the same journey, and we're going to be able to bounce all these ideas off each other and progress this role together and mold it into something we want it to be. So yeah, here I am at Checkatrade.
Awesome. Thanks very much for that. It's interesting to see and hear your career from the start, from university all the way through to now. I mean, I studied computer science for 1 whole year, and I'm definitely one of the statistics of a dropout in that. And yeah, thinking back when I was at York, it was very much the same situation you faced. There was only, I think, 3 or 4 women on the whole course as well. So I can only imagine how difficult that was for you. But at least you had sort of some mentors and some friends there to help you go through.
I love hearing Jess's story every time she tells it. It's a real inspiration to me. Jess, I just want to ask you, this is the question I love asking you. Did you expect the gender disparity when you went into university? How drastic was the reality from what you imagined?
I definitely didn't expect it to be that drastic. I thought, okay, well, you know what? Maybe there'll be like, I don't know, 10% of females here at least, or maybe pushing 15%. But, just to see like 5 other females in a room of, again, about 150 people was just crazy. I was like, wow, have I walked into the wrong place? Like, I didn't expect it to that level. And again, I think it's from coming from 6th form and always being part of like the smaller groups and thinking, oh, okay, well, 1 in 5 females isn't so bad. But then going to that bigger scale is when it really hit me on, okay, well, this is the reality of going into software engineering right now.
Mm. Did you find it challenging whilst being at uni and sort of conversing with people there? Did you face sort of much, I don't know, like backlash or even discrimination, or were the people on your course, were they open to you being there and sort of conversing with you, etc.?
Yeah, and you know, I think that's the one thing that kept me on the path I was, is that everyone was very open. And again, I like to mention a lot of the male allies I had. So I remember I had this practical class, and I think this was particularly the programming practical class. And every week I would go, I would enjoy the coding, and there was the teacher there. He was a male, and he would kind of tell me and motivate me, and he was, you know what, you're really good at coding. We need more people like you, more females in software engineering. So if you like it and if you're good at it, then I would really encourage you to pursue a career in it. And it's having those allies from an early stage, you know, in my first year practical classes, informing me that, yeah, we don't actually have many females in software engineering at the moment, but you're good at it. And, you know, if you enjoy it, then you should pursue it. And yeah, just having those kind of thoughts backed up just made me want to just get through my computer science course and see where I could go with it.
Awesome. So yeah, one of the things we said that we would discuss is challenges associated with improving ED&I within tech. It's what I see plastered over Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. Companies we work with are trying to improve it, but there are, I guess, a lot of challenges associated with it. Some people purely think of ED&I as from a gender perspective, but as we know, it's significantly more. There's socioeconomic things as well, disabilities, etc. So what challenges would you say that there are with improving ED&I within tech?
So I think that the biggest challenge I found is that you have to sort of have a fire starter inside of your organization in order to start this journey into being much more inclusive. So with my experience in tech companies, most of my teams in previous companies have all been majority white, majority male. And as a manager, as a tech leader, I've gotten used to hiring that type of engineer. So I'm now somewhat trained to know what a good engineer looks like from the predominantly male and predominantly white background that I'm quite used to. One thing I'm challenging myself inside of Checkatrade now, and I'm very, very pleased to have the opportunity to do this, is to push myself out of the comfort zone about who I'm hiring and what kind of backgrounds I'm looking for. So I would say with quite 99% certainty, I could look at the CVs that I've been hiring for the past 10 or 15 years, and I can tell you which ones I like and which ones I don't like. But I am just not used to looking at any other type of CVs until joining Checkatrade. Now, of course, I've considered them in previous companies, but what Jess has really allowed me to do actually is, from her experience, sort of enlightened me with my own biases and what I'm looking at in terms of candidates. And Jess is vital, absolutely vital to my D&I initiatives inside of Checkatrade, because her experience and just enlightening me about what I'm doing subconsciously is a huge bonus. So I think it's, unless you have this fire starter, sorry to call you a fire starter, Jess, but unless you have this bit of spark or kindling, it's very difficult to get started. One thing that I think is also very important, now we're going through this journey of hiring more diverse people inside of Checkatrade in the engineering department, is to have a community of people who are being hired at the same time as well. Hiring a single non-male would actually be quite difficult for that person to get started in the company. I think you need to hire them as groups so they can have their own little sort of support community going into the company. And thirdly and lastly, I think unless you actually focus on this, it's not going to happen by accident. You actually have to make positive steps forward to do this. For example, a lot of the job postings we have in Checkatrade engineering, there is a very small number of non-male, non-white candidates. So sometimes you have to go looking for them, right? You actually have to go out and try and find the people, go out to events, go out to LinkedIn and actually try and find them.
Yeah, and I think interestingly from this as well. So again, as James said, he's really been putting in an effort to change his biases and do his own research. And he's been really curious, and he'll often come to me and ask me questions and say, okay, well, how does this, for example, how does this job ad look from your perspective? And then also get other people on board so he can get different opinions. And, you know, I've been involved in quite a lot of the interviews that James has been doing recently, again, to get like a new perspective and help towards some of those, changing some of those biases. So I think it's really, really important for an ally to be curious and asking questions, and again, getting the perspective of others in that diverse group to then help with their biases.
The rest of the people team inside Checkatrade have also been extremely positive. They've been really helping us out in our initiative here, and it's a huge personal goal of mine to get this right in Checkatrade. It's about 50% of all I think about in Checkatrade at the moment. So I've sort of told myself that I've gotten this wrong in most of the previous companies I've been in. I've just been comfortable with hiring who I've been hiring and let the performance and the company growth speak for itself. But what that does is those environments, those previous companies I've been in, have actually been quite toxic when you look at it. If you have the typical gang of engineers, it's awful, actually, looking back to some of the things we did and say, and the sort of blokey culture of it all. It's awful. It's really, really awful. So it's a big personal goal of mine to get this right in Checkatrade. And Checkatrade are absolutely 100% supportive of us for doing this.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. And you're saying obviously you're trying to hire people at a similar time. I mean, I guess there must be a huge challenge associated with that. I mean, especially if you look at .NET in the UK, for example, I think there's about 13% of people on LinkedIn identify as female as well. So it's trying to get that. You're obviously, and again, that's just from a gender perspective. I think it's very difficult to get people starting at the same time. So you almost have to think even further ahead about what you're looking to achieve, why you're looking to achieve it, and as you say, go out to events, network around, build up talent pipelines as well. Unfortunately, I think the challenges associated, it's not we can turn this ship around overnight. This has to be an extremely well thought out process that's continually evolving as well. I mean, Jess, would you say there's any other challenges associated with improving ED&I that come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, hiring is obviously the biggest thing. And I think what we mentioned as well about the culture and getting, actually trying to change the culture and move towards getting culture add in. So again, something I think is really, really important is not just hiring the same type of people. Otherwise, again, you're going to create that kind of, again, culture and the same people, but actually looking specifically to culture add and what people can bring and add to your organization. And again, that's a big challenge because it means going out of your comfort zone, interviewing people who you may not have interviewed before, and also hiring people who you may think, oh, okay, well, actually, maybe they don't meet all of the requirements, but I think they could add in this way to our company. So it's definitely more of a risk when you're hiring for culture add, because you're not thinking about, okay, do they fit in? Do they meet all of the requirements? You're thinking, okay, well, what could they actually bring to our company? And I think that's definitely a positive way of bringing in new perspectives, new culture, new ways of thinking, rather than thinking, oh, okay, these are all of our requirements. Do they meet every single one of them? Yes, no. So yeah, that's quite a big challenge, I think.
Yeah, I agree. James, obviously you've spoken extremely passionately about how you've become an ally, and obviously Jess has been helping you do that. But where did the spark for change come from? Like, what sort of made you decide to, sort of change the face of it and improve your teams?
It's come from I think there was always a little bit of spark in me where I knew that was always something wrong in the previous companies, but I couldn't really put it forward in my conscious mind. Honestly, it is 99% Jess, honestly. So she, just listening to her experiences, her experiences are things that I've seen for the past 10 or 15 years, but never really thought about or acknowledged. So hearing it from her side and being able to empathize with her is really what's kickstarted with me. And I went through this process of about 3 or 4 weeks of sort of soul searching of like, what am I doing here? Oh, I did that 2 years ago. Oh crap, they may have thought of that in the wrong way. Oh, actually, I think every single development team I've had previously to Checkatrade, and I mean developers, engineers, software engineers, they've all been male. I haven't had a single non-male software engineer in my whole industry. My whole career. And I've just let that happen by accident, honestly.
Wow, very interesting. How would you find the sort of, what do you think the response outside of Checkatrade is to this and sort of allyship as a whole? Do you think it's improving, or do you think there's still a lot of work to be done?
Personally, I think there's a lot of good initiatives going on from multiple companies at the moment. Something I do quite regularly is attend, meetups and bigger community workshops. And often, if they are women in tech specific events, you will get, males and females there. It's not just the women coming to the events anymore. You get allies and people who actually are interested in learning. Again, it's that curiosity of, okay, well, I really want to understand how you feel about this and how you feel about the workplace and how I can help solve these problems with my teams. Again, predominantly because of the fact we're in a male-dominated industry, you are going to get majority of the leaders who are males. So you specifically need these males to come to the events and learn about how we feel as women in tech, or, again, not just women in tech, but the culture biases as well, just to be informed and learn and how they can make their teams better. So I've seen definitely recently a huge push on a lot of people wanting to become allies and learn and be curious. So that's been really nice to see more recently.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that leads us on to sort of the challenges faced in being an ally, because it's something that I've struggled with personally, is the fear of using wrong words, wrong terms, that sort of thing. That my knowledge is improving, but it's not where I think it should be, nor where I want it to be. So the fact that men do go to these meetups, it's something that I want to do more often and learn and show that I'm an ally as well within a recruitment space. But James, for you, I mean, what challenges have you faced in being an ally?
So it's trying to justify why you're putting so much effort and time into a subject like this, when if you don't directly correlate with how it affects and improves the business, then it's quite difficult to justify. So you have to start with the why. Why is this going to help? Why is this going to improve? And it's very easy to just not answer that and not do this at all. You really have to lay the foundation within your company and say, well, we're actually not benefiting totally from our engineering teams if they're not included. So something I thought about a couple of months ago is that our user base inside of Checkatrade, the people who use Checkatrade, are not 100% white males. So why should our engineering teams be 100% white males? That doesn't make sense. So just from that point of view, you can easily get to a point where the people who are building the product should be more closely aligned with your audience. But also, it's just something happens, and this is totally my opinion. Something happens when you get a group of males together in a room, and the vibe is completely different to if you have a much more diverse room or a diverse engineering team. They work completely differently, and in my opinion, and I've seen this happen. In my opinion, having more diverse engineering teams are actually very much more productive because the conversations these teams are having are much more focused and much more on the right subjects.
Okay, awesome. We've got a bit of time for Q&A as well. So Laura Sheenan asked, do you think universities are doing enough to promote D&I within courses such as computer science? So yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, please.
Yeah, I don't see much of that, to be honest. From a university perspective, I think there could they are trying to push it more. I do see like universities, I don't know, attending different workplaces or encouraging their students to go to workshops at companies, etc. But I think that's more of when you're part of the university and promoting that culture of, oh, well, in software engineering, there are women there are more diverse cultures, but not enough before you actually get to university. And maybe that's why you don't get so many non-males or others joining the courses in the first place. And that's probably the point where we need to put a change in.
Yeah, Sarah, Emily put that in the comments as well, saying, is it universities who are responsible? Surely this reframing of the tech sector needs to happen more sooner. I mean, I completely agree with that. When I was at school, computing and programming wasn't a subject that was compulsory. I picked it because I was interested in it, but lots of people don't have that option. And I think obviously university more so now is extremely expensive. So people from underprivileged backgrounds, it's extremely difficult for them to go to university. So I think it does need to change from almost a late primary school, early secondary school, and getting people into it. Thankfully, there's more things like you can learn coding from YouTube, you can learn it from code camps, etc., etc. I mean, would you suggest there's anything else that we could do to change it from an earlier stage, or is it just purely from an education standpoint?
I think the internet has a lot of benefits to this. It allows people to learn by themselves. I come from a self-taught background, so I didn't go to school at all. I didn't go to university. So I'm purely educated on the internet, essentially. And I think that's done a lot to sort of open up these barriers to entry for anyone who wants to get into the industry.
That's really good to hear. I mean, you've obviously come from a self-taught background. I speak to some engineering managers who have been to university, and they say, "Oh, I only want people who have degrees," which obviously hinders and narrows the pool. So I think again there needs to be change that happens with it to open the pool of candidates out there, and you'll improve the way of thinking and have a much sort of more diverse way of thinking as well. Alessandro said, when it comes to D&I, what is your experience with dealing with different ethnicities slash nationalities? How do they integrate in the workforce? How do you look after their well-being in balancing their personal lives and the needs to spend time in their original country? What are the struggles and how do you gear up to help them in their jobs at Checkatrade?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting one and something we actually do really well at the moment. We do have like a policy where people are allowed to work from abroad, and I think a lot of my teams take advantage of this to go back home and stay with their families. And it's having a bit more of that flexibility. Again, if you want to invite more diversity and culture into the workforce, then you also have to have policies that allow people to see their families, to take the time off they need, and that has helped hugely, and it benefits a lot of people.
Checkatrade do really well on this, actually. The list of benefits we give to our employees is longer than any one PowerPoint slide. Honestly, I've tried. And I think other companies should actually. Although I am being paid by Checkatrade, I mean this in all sincerity. Other companies should look at Checkatrade as a very good example of the benefits they give to employees, because it's hugely beneficial.
Good.
Yeah, benefits are beneficial. What am I talking about, right?
Yeah, but it's good that you recognise people need different benefits, and you've got a variety of them, and you can allow them to work from different countries as well. So it kind of helps promote that flexibility, because there's a lot of people nowadays need that flexibility, and I guess with a more remote culture, it's easier to allow that as well. You're not chained to an office desk 5 days a week between
Absolutely.
9 and 5. You can jump on after dropping your kids off at school, can jump off to go pick them up, etc., etc. So yeah, it's really good that you're promoting that healthy work-life balance, if you will. And I think that
so Checkatrade have a long legacy in putting our staff first. We're a 20-year-old company. We do this extremely well. We've been awarded Best Place to Work for many years running. So we're on top of this.
That's really good. Yeah, that's really good. And hopefully, I'd say by promoting that across sort of LinkedIn, TikTok, or social media channels, you'll get more people wanting to work for you as well, because of that flexibility.
It's interesting you say TikTok. We've only just started our foray into TikTok, and I'm finding it very interesting. I don't have it downloaded, but a lot of people tell me TikTok is where it's at in terms of Checkatrade social media.
Oh, awesome. I've got this is a shameless plug for me, but I've got my own TikTok account called the .NET Recruiter. I thought I'd coin it before anyone else did. I've posted a few bits on it, but yeah, I'm still very much getting used to it. So yeah, if you download it, drop me a follow on that. But yeah, we've got one more question here from Harriet. How do you think mentorship can support in promoting change throughout education and the workplace?
Yeah, so I think mentorship is hugely important, and it helps give people direction from early on. And something I'm really keen on at the moment is when we hire new people into Checkatrade, no matter what level they're at, is having a specific onboarding and mentoring program so that they know what they can achieve, how they can achieve it, and how they can get to where they want to be. And it's about constantly, again, supporting that change, whether it's career changes, whether it's their first job into the industry. So something we've had at the moment in Checkatrade is we've had a few QAs who have shifted towards like an engineering path, and it's about having that mentorship in place so that we can support the shift in people wanting to try new job roles. And again, I think that's a really good good thing we need to promote more in education as well, is having the mentorship in place, so people from a young age can understand what they can potentially do and how they can do it. So maybe again, it's down to some of the universities and the sixth forms and the colleges offering more education, offering mentorship for students wanting to know, okay, what's in the industry, what's out there for me.
Hugely important for every role, including my role, but also if I was a junior engineer. When I was a junior engineer, I wasn't assigned a mentor and I wasn't assigned a buddy to learn with. It's a force multiplier, and everyone should be doing this.
Cool. Awesome. I think we've got a couple more questions as well just come through. Gideon says, I think it's interesting to see lots of females get into and further in software engineering. However, do you think big or international companies are doing enough to include or promote young Africans, especially given the emergence of remote working nowadays?
Big international companies. So I'm thinking Google and Microsoft.
Yeah, that's a difficult one actually, because there are, and going back to the mentorship schemes, there are a lot of mentorship schemes out there at the moment. Particularly one that I was part of in the past 2 years was the Generating Genius, Getting Black Women into Tech scheme, and I thought it was hugely inspirational that there are mentorship schemes out there where again we can promote getting more diversity and different cultures into the workplace. So maybe it's about those bigger companies then getting involved in those mentorship schemes, because I know maybe a lot of the smaller scale and mid companies do get involved in these mentorship schemes, but I'm honestly not too sure about the bigger international companies.
I've got some insight into Microsoft. I come from a Microsoft house, and a lot of people I've worked with have gone into Microsoft to work for as a company. I think Microsoft are doing a fantastic job, and I'm not being paid for them. There's no interest here, but I think their inclusivity program is top notch.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. Well, yeah. Oh, we've got one more question here from Sarah Emily. How do we feel about the burden of solution essentially being placed on those who did not have a seat at the table until very recently and still have very few? Should we focus on them having to tell us, or should we focus on better allies?
The burden of solution. Yes, that's an interesting one for those who do not have a seat at the table. That's a very interesting one. Are we asking them for solutions? Yeah, I don't know. I don't come from this side of the table necessarily. I'm afraid to say. I would like to think, from what we've talked about in the past 40 minutes or so about Checkatrade, we are trying to find the ways we can be better. And we do have full support from everyone inside Checkatrade to be better at this as well. For the larger other companies, I couldn't necessarily speak to that. What do you think, Jess?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a hard one, and I think it's important to focus on both sides of the table equally. I think we can both help each other as well. So, we've got people like me and James who work really well together, where I'm trying to understand what James needs from his perspective of becoming a better ally and how I can help him. And then this helps me in line think of ways that I can promote more allies in the workplace and in the industry. And equally, I can help James understand what it means to be my side of the table and the different ways we think and the things that we go through and the challenges that we face. So I think it's about these two sides working together to create a relationship, to understand what can we both be doing from our end to make things better in the long term.
Absolutely. And speaking publicly is one of those things as well. Me and Jess are delighted to always speak about this topic, and I think it's one of the things we can do more as well. just talk about our experiences, what's gone right for us, what's gone wrong for us. And I definitely intend to be doing that a lot more.
Good. That's good. So yeah, thank you obviously to James and Jess for joining me on this LinkedIn Live. We hope everyone on it found it extremely useful. It's clear that they're doing a lot of good work in this space at Checkatrade as well. So if you'd like more information on what they're doing, feel free to reach out to them directly. Obviously, likewise with myself, I'm always keen to have these conversations and do my bit to improve ED&I within tech. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us after this, and we'll answer any other questions that you've got. But yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Cheers.